Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're looking at something. Well, it's a fascinating and, I think, highly structured body of traditional knowledge.
It really is. It treats sacred text almost like an applied spiritual science, which is the unique way to frame it.
Right, exactly. Our source material today isn't just commentary, it feels more like a technical roadmap.
A roadmap, that's a perfect word for it. It details the virtues and, the specific devotional uses of key passages from the Quran.
And it maps spiritual action to, well, to defined, measurable outcomes, both in this life and the next.
Absolutely. And for you, the learner, our mission today is really systematic. We're going to unpack a complete system. This framework connects engaging with the text to some very tangible, practical benefits. We're talking about guidance, protection, healing.
And even material blessings,
Yeah.
which is something that I think a lot of people will find surprising.
For sure. We're looking at what this tradition claims are the very specific benefits you get from interacting with these passages. It's a detailed methodology for spiritual practice.
And you have to understand, in this context, the text isn't just seen as, a historical document or a set of moral guidelines.
Yeah, I know.
It's viewed as a live, active tool. It's a mechanism that's designed for real-world change.
And it provides a precise methodology. I mean, it offers specific verses for specific needs, whether you're trying to ward off chronic fear or attract unexpected sustenance.
Or even just gain some clarity, both intellectually and emotionally.
That holistic approach is really the key insight we have to get across today. We're looking at a system where the text addresses the whole person. It provides shifa, which is healing for both the body and the soul.
Okay.
It provides nur, or light, for the mind, and baraka, blessing, for one's provision.
And it doesn't stop there, right? It extends outward.
It does. It extends its benefit outward to the community, which makes it a truly communal spiritual practice.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the foundational claims. Our sources lay out 6 core virtues that are bestowed on anyone who interacts with the Quran. And this, for me, is the first crucial point, the accessibility of it. These virtues are not just for the scholar or the memorizer.
No, absolutely not.
The benefit is granted if you simply, listen or attend consciously.
That's it. That accessibility point is, I think, deeply moving because it immediately lowers the barrier to entry for everyone. The source is very explicit. It says the blessing applies to listeners, to those who attend with consciousness, understanding, and feeling.
Which requires presence, not a PhD.
Exactly. Presence, not scholarship. It also includes people who memorize even a little bit, a single verse, or those who act on even some of its verses. It's an open invitation to engage at any level you can.
And still reap a reward.
And still reap a profound spiritual and, yes, material reward.
That suggests that the mere act of conscious engagement, just paying attention, is inherently transformative, regardless of how much of the text you've mastered.
That's the core idea. So shall we get into what those specific transformations are?
Let's do it. So the first virtue is honor and elevation. The claim is that the Quran honors its owner, its sahibuhu, this promise of an elevated status. What does honor really mean here? Is it about fame or money?
Well, the emphasis is critically placed on duality. The honor is granted in both this life, ad-dunya, and the next, al-akhirah.
Okay.
So in this life, ad-dunya, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a celebrity or a CEO. It implies a visible and an internal shift in your status, in your respect, your dignity.
So it's more about character.
It's entirely about character.
Yeah.
The individual who aligns themselves with the sacred text and follows its guidance, they develop a kind of moral consistency, a wisdom, a truthfulness.
And people just naturally respect that.
People inherently respect that consistency. Absolutely. It's a kind of earned nobility. The person is elevated because they are seen as adhering to a higher standard.
Okay, and this isn't just a temporary thing?
No, and the text assures the listener of this. This is a perpetual honor. It transcends the boundaries of this existence, ensuring a higher status, a dignity, and a reward in al-akhirah, in the hereafter. It fundamentally changes the value proposition of your entire life.
Wow. Okay, so that's the first one. Secondly, we have guidance and protection. The text says it guides the person toward good, al-khair, and it distances evil, ash-shar, from them. So how does it work as this sort of moral GPS?
Well, that defines the Quran's essential function as a a really sophisticated moral and spiritual compass. The Arabic term hidayah or guidance, it's not passive. It's not like just reading a map.
It's active.
It's an active steering. It's an ongoing process. It ensures that you, the individual, receive clarity when you're faced with these moral ambiguities, and it keeps you firmly on a beneficial path.
And let's be honest, modern life is just full of complex moral gray areas.
Sure.
So how does this sacred guidance actually show up in those moments?
It shows up as an internal clarity. The text provides a clear standard, a benchmark. So when you're faced with a decision, the person who engages with the Quran has a better ability to, instantaneously filter information, to understand the motives underneath, and to project the long-term consequences of their actions.
So it gives you a default setting.
A default setting toward al-khair, toward the good, yes.
Oh.
And the necessary consequence of that, of embracing good, is the removal of evil ashar. If you are actively seeking the beneficial path, the destructive paths they lose their appeal, or you avoid them entirely.
So it's a shield.
It acts as a continuous preventative shield. It deflects destructive thoughts or actions before they can even get a foothold.
Moving on to the third virtue, mercy, or Rama. The claim is that it's a source of mercy not only for the owner, but, and this is striking, for others as well. This idea of transferable mercy seems unique.
It is, and this is where the practice stops being just about the self and becomes communal. When an individual internalizes and really embodies the text's core teachings, which are, saturated with compassion, justice, kindness, that mercy doesn't just make them feel good inside.
It radiates outward.
It radiates outward, absolutely. Their improved spiritual state literally alters the atmosphere around them.
How so?
Well, their presence, their gentle advice, their principled actions, they become a source of relief and kindness for their family, their colleagues, even strangers.
So give me an example,
Right.
a difficult social situation.
Okay. A conflict at work. A person who is operating with Rama, derived from the text, they handle that conflict with patience, with generosity. They mitigate harm. They prevent the situation from escalating. Their spiritual state actively cleanses and improves the emotional and social environment around them.
So they become, living embodiments of mercy.
That's a great way to put it. Their very existence becomes a blessing to others, which means that engaging with the Quran is an act of social good, not just an act of personal piety.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, and this was a point we knew we had to deepen. The fourth virtue is light, or nur. The source claims the Quran provides light for its owner to distinguish between good and evil. But the analogy it uses is what's so striking.
It is.
The light of the sun, fire, and electricity. It frames this spiritual light using these highly practical physical tools.
That analogy is masterful. It's just masterful because it grounds this abstract concept of divine revelation in intangible cognitive function.
Yeah.
We really need to spend some time on this comparison because sun, fire, and electricity, they all do the same basic thing. They illuminate. They allow for discernment.
Okay, so let's break down the layers of that. If the Quran is like light, how do the sun, fire, and electricity represent different kinds of spiritual distinction?
Okay, think of it like this. The sun represents universal, inescapable light. It's the foundational clarity of right and wrong.
The big picture stuff.
The big picture moral principles that are clear to anyone who pays attention to the text. It gives you overall visibility in the moral landscape, making sure you don't confuse fundamental good and evil.
Okay, and fire. Fire is intense, it's focused, but it's often temporary.
Right, so fire represents the light of sudden realization or intense focus during a moment of crisis. When you're faced with a really complex ethical problem, the fire of insight from the text can cut through the confusion immediately. It shows you the path right in front of you, even if everything else around you is dark.
So it's the light of decisive judgment.
Decisive judgment, often coupled with heat, which means it takes energy and attention to use it.
And then the most modern reference, electricity. This is precise, it's functional, you can switch it on and off. It's used for specific tasks like surgery or detailed engineering.
And electricity, in this analogy, is the light of cognitive discernment. It's the ability to apply those general moral principles, the sunlight, to complex, nuanced, modern situations.
Like what?
Like diagnosing a hidden motive in a business deal or understanding a deceptive legal contract. It's the sharp, focused spiritual and intellectual insight you need to see the fine print, the hidden flaw, or the subtle intentions of other people. This nur provides clarity in ambiguous situations. It's the practical tool you need for sound judgment in your daily life.
So the Quran provides all three. The broad moral clarity of the sun, the sudden insight of fire in a crisis, and the precise analytical light of electricity for complex social and intellectual tasks.
Exactly. That frames the revelation not just as a religious text, but as a superior operating system for the mind.
Next up is a claim that speaks directly to modern anxiety: limitless provision and blessings, or baraka. The text defines baraka very specifically as giving without limits in life. And the promise is that God provides sustenance from unexpected sources.
Minhatid natri, from where you do not expect. This is a concept we really have to delve into because it's often misinterpreted as just, more money.
And it's not.
Baraka is far more powerful than that. It's not just about quantity, it's about quality, it's about multiplication, and crucially, it's about the source of the provision. When God grants baraka, provision arrives without all the strain and anxiety that we usually associate with trying to earn a living.
So how does that shift manifest psychologically for you, the learner?
Well, it fundamentally shifts your relationship with material scarcity. If you rely only on your own means, your job, your bank account, any setback causes immense anxiety. But if you rely on the source, on God, via the baraka promised in the text, you become detached from the means.
You're not worried about where it's coming from.
You have certitude. You have a certainty that your provision will arrive, often surprisingly, from channels you weren't even monitoring, from where you least expect.
So the practical implication is that what you have is enough, it's fulfilling, even if it might look meager to an outsider.
Exactly. It means that what little you have goes farther than immense wealth without this blessing. Baraka can show up in your time. You accomplish more in an hour than others do in a day. It can be in your health, where you stay vital despite poor circumstances. It can be in your relationships, which are deep and sustaining rather than draining.
So it replaces anxiety with trust?
It replaces anxiety about scarcity with a profound sense of trust and certitude. It transforms financial and material stress into spiritual reliance.
And finally, the sixth foundational virtue is comprehensive healing, Shifa. The source claims it offers healing for the body and the soul from both physical and psychological or mental ailments.
This confirms the text's function as a total comprehensive remedy. The explicit inclusion of the body, al-jasad, and the soul, aru, is key. When we talk about healing the body, yes, it's relief from physical sickness, which is often addressed through specific recitations.
But the psychological part is crucial.
The inclusion of psychological and mental ailments, an-nafsiyya, is so critical in our modern context.
That covers things like anxiety, deep-seated doubt, chronic stress, emotional trauma. How does the text act as a kind of therapy for these internal states?
The tradition posits that psychological pain often stems from spiritual root causes: doubt or shak, heedlessness, a lack of purpose, or destructive negative character traits.
So it treats the root, not the symptom.
It treats the root. Reading, listening to, and living by the Quran addresses these roots directly. It reorders your internal landscape. It provides a sense of ultimate meaning and connection. And this spiritual clarity, this peace, it naturally mitigates stress, anxiety, and depression. It aligns your inner self with reality, which leads to Shifa, inner peace, which, as any modern doctor will tell you, is a huge factor in improving physical health. It's a profound, non-invasive therapy for your entire self.
Okay, so we've established those 6 general blessings. Now let's shift to specific, highly targeted applications. Our source identifies particular chapters and verses that carry extraordinary weight and promise.
Right. This section establishes a clear, almost theological hierarchy of importance within the text itself. The source identifies, based on tradition, 2 passages that really stand above all the rest.
The greatest chapter, Azam Surah, is identified as Surah al-Fatiha, the opening chapter. And the greatest verse, Azamaya, is Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. We can't just state that. We need to explain why they hold this supremacy.
Let's start with Al-Fatiha. It's often called the mother of the book, the essence of the Quran. Its greatness comes from how comprehensive it is. It's simultaneously a praise of God, an affirmation of monotheism, a recognition of the Day of Judgment,
And a prayer.
and a deeply personal prayer for guidance. Because it encapsulates the central themes of the entire revelation in just 7 short verses, it's absolutely essential for ritual prayer and for spiritual focus.
And Ayatul Kursi, the verse of the throne. What specific content elevates it to the status of the greatest verse?
Its supremacy comes from its unparalleled description of God's attributes. The verse combines these core theological concepts that reveal the absolute nature of the divine. It affirms God's eternal life and self-subsistence. He needs nothing, yet he sustains everything.
And it establishes his dominion over the cosmos.
Over the heavens and the earth. And crucially, it denies any human limitations. It states he is never touched by slumber or sleep.
That denial of human limitation seems to be the core of its power.
Precisely. It's an affirmation of total, absolute, and continuous power and knowledge. No one can intercede except by his permission. His knowledge encompasses everything past, present, and future, except for what he wills to conceal. So to recite this verse is to connect directly with the most sublime and foundational descriptions of God's absolute sovereignty.
It's like a spiritual concentration of power.
It is, which is why it is so consistently recommended for protection.
Okay, let's move to a passage with a very potent threefold practical promise. The last two verses in Surah Al-Baqarah. These verses offer specific instructions for immediate benefit, focusing on spiritual defense and personal aspiration.
The promise attached to these final two verses of Al-Baqarah is, it's extraordinarily comprehensive. It integrates both your internal state and the external outcome.
The first claim is immense. They achieve what one intends and wishes from reading them. So if you read them with a specific intention, that intention is realized. But is this truly magical wish fulfillment? Or is there something else going on?
That's a critical nuance to understand. The tradition emphasizes nice, sincere, pure intention. Reading the verses is an act of spiritual fortification. So if you read them with the pure intention for, say, success in a noble endeavor, the act of reading doesn't just magically produce the result.
It's not a magic wand.
No. Rather, it aligns your spiritual, your mental, and your physical efforts toward that goal. And at the same time, it removes internal obstacles like doubt and external obstacles like fear. So the fortified self acts with greater clarity, with more effort, and with divine support, which makes realizing the intention far more probable.
So it's like aligning your sail with the wind of divine support.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, the second claim is that they suffice against evil, takfika ashar. This makes them an immediate, powerful shield.
That's the defensive function. The verses contain these profound supplications for forgiveness and for the strength to bear burdens. So reading them acts as a kind of spiritual insurance policy, guarding the reader against affliction and misfortune.
And the third claim closes the loop. They bring good, tajlib blak el-khair. So it's not just defensive warding off evil, it's proactively attracting good.
Exactly. It's an integrated system of spiritual maintenance. It addresses your personal shortcomings with forgiveness. It addresses external threats by being sufficient against evil. And it addresses your aspirations by attracting good. This is why this specific instruction is so highly valued. It functions as a complete, concise package for maintaining spiritual integrity and attracting fortune.
So we're now moving into a collection of chapters recommended for specific needs. We're starting with intercession, and then we're moving to what I think is a really insightful piece of scholarly rigor within the source material itself.
Right. Surah Al-Mulk, which is also known as Surah Tabarak, the sovereignty, is given these powerful, active, almost personified roles. It's described as an intercessor, a shafiya, a deliverer, munjia, and a defender, a mudafa.
So the chapter itself is advocating for the reader.
That's the idea. The titles imply that the chapter itself argues on your behalf.
And given that this chapter is traditionally associated with daily recitation, what are the specific benefits promised, particularly regarding the afterlife?
The outcomes focus very heavily on protection from suffering after death. The persistent recitation of this chapter creates a kind of a protective argument or a defense that stands with you when you face judgment or hardship. It helps the owner obtain desired good. And crucially, and this is the specific promise, it wards off punishment. Tubid anhu al-ab.
That reference to warding off punishment, especially in the grave, makes it a kind of proactive investment in your eternal security.
It absolutely is. The belief is that the verses of Al-Mulk argue on behalf of the person. They demand that the punishment be lifted because the reader dedicated their time to engaging with its meaning and its light. It delivers from all evil, naja min kulli shar, ensuring that the ultimate evil, which is separation from divine mercy, is averted.
So it's spiritual life assurance.
Spiritual life assurance based on daily devotional actions.
Exactly. Now, this next part is a truly critical distinction that, for me, elevates the rigor of our source material. It makes a clear scholarly flag. It says the following chapters are noted to not have a supporting hadith attributed to the prophet regarding their specific virtue, at least within this text.
Yes, and that is vital. When a source material itself flags that an attribution is missing, it demonstrates a really high degree of intellectual honesty and source critique.
It changes the authority of the claim.
It completely changes the authority level. It means the benefits ascribed to these next chapters are derived not from a direct command, but from, interpretive tradition, from communal experience, or, most powerfully, from the sheer content and the theme of the chapter itself.
So we're moving from direct prophetic instruction to scholarly derivation based on the text's subject matter.
Precisely. The source is relying on textual implication rather than direct command for these next applications. And that makes the underlying logic of the connection between the chapter's theme and the desired outcome even more interesting to analyze.
Okay, let's look at the first one. For Surah Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, the benefit is rooted in its immediate context. The reference is that God stated right after mentioning Ar-Rahman, he taught the Quran.
Right, Allama al-Quran. And this powerful textual link informs the derived purpose. It is for those who desire a true understanding of the jurisprudence, the fiqh, of the Quran.
That seems counterintuitive at first. Ar-Rahman is known for its poetic beauty, its overwhelming emphasis on creation and mercy. He keeps asking, which of the favors of your Lord will you deny?
It does.
So why would a chapter focused on mercy be prescribed for understanding Islamic law, or fiqh, which is often seen as being strict and complex?
Well, the connection is profound. Mercy is a prerequisite for a true understanding and application of the law. If you approach fiqh without the lens of Ar-Rahman, the rules can seem harsh or arbitrary.
So it softens the heart first.
It softens the heart. By engaging with this surah, the reader is constantly reminded of God's overwhelming compassion, and they understand that the law is ultimately a manifestation of divine favor and order, not just punitive restriction. So engaging with the chapter is a method of preparing your intellect and your heart to receive and apply the nuances of the law correctly, with compassion and with insight.
Next, Surah Ashar, the relief. The attributed purpose here is to lift affliction and pain and to obtain happiness. This sounds like a direct prescription for psychological distress.
It is. It's intensely focused on emotional and psychological well-being, which makes it highly relevant today. Ashar literally means the expansion, specifically the expansion of the chest.
A metaphorical reference.
Yes, to relieving spiritual constriction, which today we might call depression or acute anxiety. The chapter offers powerful hope and solace by repeatedly asserting that ease always follows hardship.
Verily, with hardship comes ease. That's the core message, right?
Yeah, that is the core message, repeated for emphasis. The recitation is prescribed specifically for moments of intense difficulty, spiritual constriction, or chronic stress. The source claims that the recitation actively shifts your emotional state from despair to happiness by reinforcing absolute certitude in divine relief.
So it's a spiritual antidepressant.
In a way, yes. It's a therapy based on conviction. It reminds the afflicted person that their current state is temporary and that relief is guaranteed.
And then there's Surah Al-Kawthar, the abundance. This is dedicated to a very material and experiential benefit for the enjoyment and increase of blessings. This connects back to our earlier discussion of barakah.
It does, but in a very focused way. Al-Kawthar is the shortest chapter in the Quran, just 3 verses, yet it promises this immense overflowing abundance, a heavenly river granted to the prophet. The spiritual mechanism here is that by reading it, the believer is asking for a reflection of that celestial abundance in their worldly life.
So it's about generating both contentment with what you have and an increase in what you receive.
Precisely. The goal is twofold. First, to ensure that your existing blessings are truly enjoyed, istimta. This means you're satisfied, grateful, and content. Remember we said wealth without barakah is empty? This recitation ensures the blessing is fulfilling.
And the second part.
Second, it is a mechanism for the simultaneous increase of those blessings. It emphasizes gratitude and the recognition of divine gifts as the catalyst for even more provision.
Okay, this final collection of chapters brings us to the shortest, most potent passages. We're covering theological mathematics and perhaps the most unique claim in the entire source-aggressive spiritual defense and, well, espionage.
What stands out here is, the intensely specific and frankly dramatic function of Surah Al-Masad. Unlike every other passage we've discussed, which focuses on general good or internal healing or self-protection, this chapter is dedicated explicitly to the destruction and identification of enemies. Lihalak Allah.
It's the chapter dedicated entirely to a specific enemy of the prophet, which suggests its use here is symbolic. It's targeting generalized malicious intent. The source lists 4 specific targets for destruction.
And the list defines the enemies not by open warfare, but by hidden spiritual malice, which reflects the subtle threats of social life. The first group are the envious, al-husad, those whose jealousy poisons your life and success.
Okay.
Second, those who commit evil or darkness, the general malevolent forces. Third, those who practice sorcery.
And the fourth group is the most insidious, because they are hidden. Those who pretend to be good, but are secretly committing evil against you, and you don't even know it. This is the realm of spiritual espionage.
It is. They are the trusted sources who are secretly undermining you, the internal threat. This takes the practice beyond simple defense and turns it into a mechanism for spiritual awareness and, frankly, for vetting your social circle.
So how do you practically identify these hidden enemies? The source says you'll know them through their tone of speech and their movements and actions. This is the key insight we have to develop.
This is a direct connection back to Nur, that light of discernment we talked about earlier. The spiritual clarity granted by this practice sharpens your intuition and your ability to perceive subtle disharmony or insincerity that an ordinary spiritually unengaged person would miss entirely.
So the practice doesn't give you a magical list of names.
No.
It refines your human intelligence, your ability to read nonverbal cues, microexpressions, subtle shifts in vocal tone. But it amplifies it with spiritual insight.
Exactly. When a deceitful person speaks, even if their words are kind, their underlying malice might be reflected in their lan al-qual, the tone, the subtext, the hesitation, the slip of the tongue. Their harakatiyam was afalihim, their movements and actions become inconsistent with their proclaimed kindness.
And the practice gives you the light to see that.
It grants you that precise electrical light of discernment needed to see the falsehood that's masked by kind words. It allows you to guard against the most insidious harm, deception from a trusted source. It is practical, high-stakes spiritual defense powered by refined observation.
Shifting back to theological mathematics. Surah Al-Ikhlas, the sincerity. The source confirms the claim attributed to the prophet that it is equal to 1/3 of the Quran. Why does this short chapter carry such immense theological weight?
Because Al-Ikhlas is focused entirely on Tawhid, the absolute oneness, uniqueness, and self-sufficiency of God. It explicitly rejects all forms of idolatry, anthropomorphism, and partnership. And the core purpose of the entire Quran can be synthesized as promoting that one idea, Tawhid.
So because the chapter encapsulates the central theological thesis of the entire revelation in just 4 verses, it's given the spiritual weight of 1/3 of the text.
Precisely. It's an economy of devotion, and the mathematical benefit is straightforward. Reading it 3 times is therefore like completing the reading of the entire Quran. This provides a massive spiritual return on a minimal investment of time, making it an essential practice for anyone seeking accelerated, deep spiritual reward.
To conclude the protective practices, the source mandates the combination of 3 short chapters. Surah Al-Ikhlas, Al-Falaq, which is the daybreak, and Anas, mankind. What is the specific combined function of this triad?
These 3 are known as the protective triad, often recited together. Al-Ikhlas establishes the spiritual foundation, the oneness. And then Al-Falaq and Anas are the 2 refuge-seeking chapters.
What are they seeking refuge from specifically?
Well, Al-Falaq provides refuge from external evils. Physical harm, the darkness when it settles, the evil of those who practice magic, and the specific evil of the envious, the husad. So it addresses threats coming from the physical world or from external malice.
And Anas.
Anas, however, addresses internal evils, the whispers and temptations of the devil or the lower self that cause doubt, hesitation, and self-destruction.
So reading the 3 creates a comprehensive spiritual force field, an anchor of oneness, a shield against external attacks, and a defense against internal psychological and spiritual sabotage.
And the practice involves reading these 3 in combination, morning and evening, sabahan wa masa. The promise is, again, comprehensive. This combined recitation will suffice against evil and bring good, ensuring continuous protection throughout the day and the night.
So we have meticulously mapped out all these specific actions, which verses to read, when to read them, and for what purpose. Now, we really need to slow down and connect these practices to the necessary inner virtues required to realize the full, limitless blessings promised in the source text.
Right. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text makes it absolutely clear that recitation is the foundation, but the multiplier of all the rewards is the internal moral state of the person. The spiritual status you attain isn't just a gift, it's a direct result of sincere intention layered upon sustained, virtuous action.
And the source connects the reader's sincere intention, their naya, during recitation to the spiritual rewards of those who dedicate their lives to the most arduous forms of worship.
The claims here are, they're truly remarkable in their generosity. By reading specific passages with the right intention, you, the individual, can spiritually emulate the status of three distinct, highly revered practitioners:
Right.
the Quran memorizer, the Hafiz al-Quran, the fasting person, Asaim, and one who prays the night vigil, Qaim al-Layl.
So, the spiritual credit granted to the person is proportional to the intent they bring to the text. It allows them to access the merit of memorization, rigorous daytime discipline, and sustained, exhausting nighttime prayer, simply through focused recitation.
It speaks volumes about the immense value placed on your inner state and the purity of your will. This tradition recognizes that not everyone has the physical stamina or the time to memorize the whole text or fast year-round. But the will to do good, combined with the act of recitation itself, is seen as approximating the merit of those sustained, difficult acts of worship.
It opens the highest spiritual rewards to everyone.
To people of all capacities, yes.
Okay, but despite all the specific instructions and promises, there is one ultimate overarching condition that acts as the spiritual gatekeeper for all of this.
Yes. The perfection of certainty in God. Asanat al-Yaqin by Allah.
Yaqeen, certainty.
Yaqin. It is the absolute bedrock. It is the spiritual currency that allows this whole system to function at full throttle. And it's not just belief, it's conviction. It's absolute knowledge and complete unwavering reliance. If you read the protective verses of Al-Baqarah, but internally you're holding on to this deep nagging doubt that they won't work, the result will be constrained.
That is the challenge, though. In a world defined by uncertainty and constant stress, how is this perfection of certainty realistically achieved? It sounds almost superhuman.
It is challenging, and it is a process, not a destination. It involves moving from intellectual belief, knowing God exists, to experiential certitude, knowing God will act on your behalf.
How do you build it?
You build it through conscious reflection on the power of the passages you're reciting. When you recite the provision verses, yaqeen means your actions align with that trust. You stop operating out of fear and start operating out of reliance. And that frees up immense psychological and emotional energy.
So the verses are the mechanism, but yaqeen is the powerful fuel that allows the mechanism to operate at full exponential capacity. Without it, the mechanism just sputters.
Precisely. And the promise attached to this perfect certainty is the ultimate payoff. God will provide manifolds of what was hoped for. Razaqakallah adafamantamit. This transforms the entire relationship between effort and reward, connecting the high spiritual virtue of yaqeen directly to exponential provision. It is the highest form of spiritual leveraging available.
And finally, the source makes sure we understand that these great rewards, amplified by yaqeen, they don't come in a moral vacuum. They require a set of moral virtues that have to accompany the practice, ensuring that the recipient is worthy of the blessing.
Yes, these virtues are presented as inseparable companions to the spiritual practice. You cannot achieve manifold rewards while simultaneously exhibiting poor character. Your moral character has to be aligned, ensuring your heart is receptive and grateful.
And what are these essential companions?
They are patience, aser, contentment or satisfaction, aridha, moderation or humility, al-qana, and finally, good manners or morals, husn al-akhlaq.
Why are these specific virtues so crucial to realizing the textual benefits?
Think of them as necessary structural supports for the entire building. Patience, ser, ensures that when provision or protection is delayed, because results often aren't instant, the practitioner doesn't abandon the path or lose their yaqeen.
And contentment.
Contentment, arida, and moderation, al-qana, they ensure that when the immense blessing and provision, the baraka, do arrive, the recipient remains grateful. They don't become arrogant, and they don't squander the gift through excess desire.
And good manners closes the loop.
It does. Good manners, husn al-akhlaq, ensures that the outward flowing mercy we talked about in Section 1 remains genuine, making the individual a true source of peace for their community. These virtues are the evidence of the heart's healing, and without them, the blessings cannot take root permanently.
What an extraordinarily detailed, systematic map we've uncovered today. We started with those 6 general blessings that are accessible to any conscious listener, from comprehensive healing for the body and soul to light, for discernment, and limitless provision.
Then we move to the highly specific, targeted practices. The supremacy of Al-Fatiha and Ayatul Kursi, the powerful protective shield and wish fulfillment associated with the end of Al-Baqarah, and of course the vital function of Surah Al-Mulk for intercession.
We also gain some key insights into the scholarly rigor of the source,
Hmm.
particularly noting that distinction between direct prophetic attribution and those chapters, like Ar-Rahman and Al-Masad, whose specific uses are derived from textual implication and communal experience.
Which all comes together to provide a clear system. Specific spiritual actions yield specific outcomes. But the ultimate multiplier, the foundation of all rewards, lies not just in the reading, but in the perfection of certainty, patience, and moral character.
It's a profound, holistic approach that transforms sacred text into an active methodology for life. It addresses everything from immediate practical needs, like seeking provision or identifying hidden enemies through their tone of speech, all the way to achieving eternal benefit, like reaching the status of a night worshiper.
And this leaves us with a final provocative thought for you, the learner, to mull over. We discussed that the spiritual practice grants the ability to identify hidden enemies through subtle, nonverbal cues and tone. If the purity of the heart is what perfects yaqeen and unlocks these high-level abilities, does this mean that moral failure, a lack of patience or contentment, actually leads to a diminishing of one's ability to perceive objective reality and protect oneself from the deceivers of this world?
Does true clarity require perfect virtue? Something profound to carry with you as you move forward and apply these distinctions to the world around you. Thank you for joining us for the Deep Dive.